Hello, it's Heather from Dawn Emporium again, and in case you are watching this one before my cheesecake one, yes, I have myself a new trolley. So excited. Right, today we're doing Italian meatballs-ish, because someone had frozen meatballs. And we're doing the story of Anansi and the Anthills, because I love Anansi. Anyone who knows Anansi and the stories of Anansi will love Anansi. Or who has seen American Gods. Because if you did not fall in love with Neil Gaiman's, or Gaiman's, I say Gaiman's, portrayal of Anansi, who has never heard of Anansi before, then I think his portrayal was actually pretty good, honestly. Yes, my side is messy over here because that needs washing down from earlier on from making the cheesecake. It's still covered in condensed milk. That stuff is not easy to work with. So, because these are frozen and not homemade, I will be making homemade at some point soon. The first thing I'm going to do is stick them all in the oven to start cooking. Now, I am making a big amount of them because my husband takes hot meals to work because he works 12-hour shifts, so he takes like sandwiches and a hot meal to work. So we're having these for tea today, and then whatever's left will be going into, these are my new ones, sorry, they're still wet because like I say, they're new, so they had to get washed. Little tubs like these into my freezer for him to take to work. Because I like doing that. We've also got, my son made spaghetti bolognese the other day, and so I made that into lasagna for him to take to work. Just like pre-boil the lasagna sheets, because some people use them dry and then let them cook in the oven. If you pre-boil them, you can use them as ready meals. That's what I find anyway. So these are going into the oven. Now obviously they need to defrost, but they need to cook a bit too. So, going in, that's sat there just waiting for my spaghetti. So, you're the next biggest one. In here, this is a really simple recipe, so most of this is just going to be me talking about Anansi. Sorry, not sorry. Right. Get onto the story. By the way, big pot is oregano, little pot is basil. That's pretty obvious. Fighting off the vampires, one meal at a time. And if anybody just thinks that I'm just randomly putting them in the sink, they're going into the bowls that I made my cheesecake in, and then I'll sort them out once I've finished all of this. And if anyone is Italian and already wants to kill me, feel free. You'd probably be doing the NHS a big favour. So, once in a time before time, there was a woman with magical powers, and her name was 5, as in the number 5. And she was mean. So the people called her a witch, and she hated the name 5, and nobody knows why her parents called her 5. When she was a child, the other children bullied her. Sometimes they would giggle and say, "Give me 5," taunting her. Imagine being that hated by your parents that they literally called you a number. Maybe she was the 5th child and they just run out of names by this point. You know, just coming up with ideas here. So, because she had magical powers, she decided to create a weird spell. Anyone who says 5 will drop dead, she said. Then she changed her mind and she said, no, actually, anyone who says 5 will disappear. So, the spell immediately caused problems in the country. Nobody could say that number again without disappearing. Hey? Children could no longer recite their 5 times tables. People would drop the word 5 from their vocabulary. Once in Five's village, someone asked a merchant how much a t-shirt was. The merchant replied, "It's 5, oh no," and disappeared before he could finish his sentence. Yeah, she was not a happy bunny, was this 5. So, now, the crafty spider called Anansi also happened to live in Five's village. Gotta love Anansi. Probably why I'm so pro spider. Being a spider, he was not a good farmer. He was too small and too weak. And because of this, times were hard. His wife and children were starving. Absolutely starving. But luckily, Anansi was cunning. He could rely on his wits to survive no matter what. Now, he knew of Five's spell, as did everybody else. He knew about the people disappearing, so he thought of a plan. Ooh, oh, you're the bit that I want, mate. On the road to the village's marketplace, he found, I'm going to say this wrong, I am sorry, a Guanju tree, I'm going to say Guanju, that sounds better. So he found a Guanju tree. In the Guanju tree, he spun himself a comfy hammock. And then, once he'd spun himself a comfy hammock to lie in, he managed to pile up 5 mounds of soil. And in each mound of soil, he planted a yellow yam. He drove in a stake next to the yams for their vines to grow on and watered them carefully until each one began to sprout even. Chill your beans. One day, Anansi was sat in his hammock in the Guanju tree when he saw Brother Dog walking down the road to market. Anansi got out of his hammock and stood near the road. "Excuse me, Brother Dog, I am bad at counting because I was a yicky and sickly child." Now, yicky means small. Oh, he was only a spider, so. Right. Can you tell me how many yams I'm growing? Brother Dog was a kind fellow and wanted to help, so he says, "Of course I can. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no!" And swoosh, he disappeared. And Anansi was happy. His plan had worked. Brother Dog had disappeared and left behind his basket of fruits for the market, which Anansi then took home for his family later that day. Brother Bull was walking to market. "Good day, Bro Bull. Could you spare me a minute?" Anansi asked. "What can I do you for, Anansi?" replied Brother Bull. "Can you tell me how many yams I'm growing? I want to make sure I have enough." "Of course," said Brother Bull, and he counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and swoosh, he was gone. Again, Anansi took his basket of fruit home for his family, and for a long time Anansi did well, tricking the passers-by into counting his yam hills and taking their goods meant for market. He tricked Brothers Turtle, Owl, Hare, Mongoose, Peeny-Wally, the Firefly, and even the tough Bro Scorpion. Now, One day, Mrs. Guineafowl came by. She was a nice young mother of newly hatched chicks, and she couldn't say no to anyone. She and her husband shared the chores of taking their goods to market, and today was her turn. When Anansi saw her coming, he got out of his hammock in the guanju tree, and he called out in his sweetest voice, "Good morning, Mrs. Guineafowl. Could you help me with a problem?" Just 1 second. Put you on at the back. Go on. Okay. So in there is the basil, the oregano, and the garlic, and there's meant to be a bit of salt as well, so I'll put a little bit of salt in. It's meant to be more than that, but you don't want too much salt. Put that up a tad. Cooking away nicely. "Of course, Anansi," the polite Mrs. Guineafowl said. "I have these hills here, but I don't know how to count. Would you help me, please?" Anansi begged. Mrs. Guineafowl had seen Anansi trick Bro Scorpion, so she walked over to the last jam hill and stood on it. She said, "You have 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one I'm standing on." "What? What are you doing? That's not the way you count," Anansi shouted angrily. "What do you mean, Anansi?" Mrs. Guineafowl asked. "I don't know of any number called the one I am standing on," said Anansi. "Start again," Anansi ordered. Mrs. Guineafowl began again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one I'm standing on." "That's not what you're supposed to say," Anansi shouted angrily. "Well, if you're so smart and I am what am I supposed to say?" Mrs. Guineafowl asked. Anansi shouted, "You're supposed to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops!" Suddenly, Anansi disappeared with a swoosh, leaving all the loot he had gotten from his victims for Mrs. Guineafowl. Oh dear. So, that's the end of that one. Anansi has a bit of a thing with that. So, I've got my water boiling there, waiting for me to put me spaghetti in. Now, my sauce is heating up nicely already, and I'm now waiting on my meatballs to do a bit more cooking, so I've turned that up slightly. So, because this is going to be tea tonight, as well as making packed lunches, I'm going to wait until the meatballs are done to put them in there. However, you don't want me prattling on for the next 3 years while the meatballs cook. So basically, when the meatballs are cooked nice and brown on the outside and cooked through to the middle, because remember, these ones are frozen. If they were fresh, they'd probably be most of the way cooked by now. Stick them in the sauce for a few minutes. I usually do 5 or 10 minutes while the pasta is cooking. That's the way I do it, because pasta only takes 10 minutes. And once the meatballs are in the sauce, put the pasta on to cook and then serve. Like I say, I have made more of the sauce than I normally would. However, I'm going to put my recipe in that I've used today, because I've used both passata and a tin of tomatoes, and I'm going to point out that you should use one or the other normally, only I've upped it. I've also upped how much garlic you should use, just because I'm using more meatballs than what you should, and in future I'll do one on how to actually make fresh meatballs. There are several different types of meatballs, so you'll get several different over the coming I don't know how long. But it's not like we have meatballs every week, so I'm sorry about that. But this is a nice simple sauce for your meatballs. And it has simple things in, just your oregano, your basil and your ginger. If all else fails, just buy some shop bought Italian herb mix. It's got too much flavour in personally, but most people will have some of this knocking around in the house and they can just use that if they don't have oregano and basil separately. And I got a massive great big lot of oregano, that's why that's so big. So yeah, right, you need turning down. And everybody, have fun, know your power, and I will see you soon. And I wonder who we're going to have next time. Bye.